Honda's decision to halt development on a $15 billion deal in Ontario has the EV industry as a whole shaken. Ontario Premier Doug Ford yesterday tried to soothe those fears.
When I've talked to Honda, they've promised us they're going to continue on with their expansion. They're going to keep that facility moving forward. So we'll just see how that moves forward. But we're very confident that we'll continue producing Honda vehicles here in Ontario.
So that's Premier Ford saying he's going to hold Honda accountable after the automaker postponed a $15 billion investment to build 4 EV manufacturing hubs in at least 2 years. The decision comes as Canada's auto sector is grappling with layoffs and production cuts, some of those brought around by tariffs. For more on those concerns, we're joined from Ottawa this morning by Brian Kingston, President and CEO of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association. Welcome to your morning.
Good morning.
When Honda announced this EV project last year, Ottawa said it was going to create Canada's first comprehensive electric vehicle supply chain. And the 2 main plants in Alliston, Ontario, would have created 1,000 jobs in a couple of years by 2028. If you can you put into, sort of common and digestible form for us, how big a blow is Honda's decision to our auto sector overall?
Well, there's no doubt that this is obviously a very concerning development, given all of the other challenges that the industry is facing right now. That said, it doesn't change the fact that the industry has invested over $1 trillion globally into electrification. Canada has been the recipient of $40 billion plus in investment. This is the way the industry is going. And because Canada is so well positioned due to all of our critical minerals, rare earth elements, and the only jurisdiction in the world to have all of the elements required to build next generation EV batteries, we have a major opportunity here. But the fact is the EV market has slowed, and it has slowed quite markedly, and so manufacturers have to respond to that.
Right, and of course Honda gave that as the basis for their decision in halting this project. And just to let people know some of those numbers, the data shows Canadians are becoming less keen on EVs. A recent Auto Trader survey found 42% of Canadians are currently interested in buying an EV. That's down from 68% in just 2022. So tell us more about what's behind this sharp decline.
Well, yes, and in addition to that data, even more striking is the share of EV sales in the Canadian market. At the end of last year, 20% of sales were zero-emission vehicles. Last month, that has dropped to 7.5%. So the EV market is effectively collapsing at the moment in Canada. And it's because of a few things. First of all, governments abruptly removed purchase incentives. The federal government surprised the industry in January and got rid of its incentive. That was $5,000 to a consumer if you bought an EV. And then on top of that, Quebec eliminated their incentive for a couple of months. They brought it back at a lower level, and BC is getting rid of theirs this month. So you have a number of programs that were meant to incentivize and help Canadians make the switch to electric that just disappeared effectively overnight at a time where Canadians are facing economic anxiety because of all the tariff issues, and continue to have questions about charging infrastructure, which is not being built at nearly the pace required to support mass EV adoption. So we've got a number of headwinds right now, which are impacting the sales of these vehicles and the path to higher uptake.
I want to get to the government's response in a moment, but first, Honda says it's going to reassess its investment after the delay ends. We don't know which way they're going to assess that. About 128,000 Canadians work directly in this auto industry, with hundreds of thousands more working in related sectors. So if more time is needed for the EV transition in this country, where does that leave hundreds of thousands of auto workers?
Well, we're in the midst of a transition, and so that means that a lot of the production that is currently here in Canada is still focused on internal combustion engines, gas-powered vehicles. And the transition will, of course, occur as you see more and more EV demand increasing over time. So the bigger immediate risk to the sector and to the jobs footprint here in Canada is the ongoing tariff challenge. Manufacturers are indicating through recent announcements that they have exposures of billions of dollars to U.S. tariffs. And if that is not addressed, that will put the North American automotive industry and all of the jobs it supports in a very, very bad situation. So we have to get past tariffs, number one. And then number two, we need a better policy environment in Canada to support electrification. And just to give you an example of some of the policies the government's pursuing that could be very damaging, we have an EV mandate in place that is going to require 20% EV sales next year. There's just simply no pathway to that.
Yeah, and a reminder to everybody, the overall goal was by 2030, 2035, they wanted to have this high percentage of people doing EV, which is why they put these incentives in place and then took them away. Something that people in the auto industry don't like to talk about, but I ask it every time because we know it's the reality coming south of the border from the White House, and that is the fact that the President of the United States has said, I am bringing manufacturing to Canadian soil. Honda has said they're going to wait and assess. What happens if Honda decides to put the manufacturing in the U.S.?
I think what you'll see happen is manufacturers will have to adjust production based on U.S. tariffs and try to minimize their tariff exposure. That will absolutely occur. Will you see mass reinvestment in the United States and facilities moving to the U.S.? Absolutely not. We have an integrated supply chain. It has been this way for 60 years. And frankly, the Americans need Canada. We're a big market. We're their #1 export destination. So we will get past this. On top of that, all of the uncertainty that the U.S. administration is creating right now. I mean, U.S. trade policy is changing on an almost daily basis. This does not create a stable investment environment. Canada is a stable investment environment, and we have all the minerals required for EV batteries. So we've got a lot of good things going for us, but there's no doubt these tariffs are painful, and they're going to make for a very rocky road in the coming months.
Yes, but as you point out, a lot of those minerals are still in the ground, and the President may acknowledge our market, but he still wants to make them south of the border. So these are the stressors that we're facing, as is Prime Minister Carney now. Brian Kingston, thanks for joining us this morning.